Unlock your vision. 4 bizarre bedtime snacks seniors must try tonight for crystal clear sight. The night was heavy with shadows, the kind that whispered secrets and carried chills beneath the moon's watchful gaze. It was in this eerie stillness that the curious world of peculiar bedtime snacks began to unravel, or rather, revolve like a lunar eclipse around the most unexpected offerings for clearer sight. Imagine, if you will, a mustard yellow banana, speckled with brown like a bad, late-night comedian, enticing, yet somehow ominous. This wasn't just any banana. Legend said it held the power to sharpen sight like a sharpened knife through foggy glass. But strange stories didn't stop there. The old wives in just about every town spoke of cucumber slices wrapped in foil, placed under a pillow, said to imbue dreams with vivid clarity. What kind of clarity? One might ponder. The kind that could illuminate the soul, define relationships, and perhaps even revive long-forgotten memories. Just thinking about it could make the spine tingle, like a ghost was standing right behind you. Every tick of the clock sent ripples through the house. You could almost hear the nervous murmurings of elderly folks discussing the oddities behind these snacks. Will it really work? One might quip nervously, wringing their hands. Can a bedtime snack really sharpen vision? The tension hung thick in the air as the questions lingered, inviting more peculiar possibilities like the flamingo pink jello, rumored to restore vision in mere hours, while casting a whimsical glow about the room. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just as quickly as hope bloomed, the intrigue peaked. The final revelation of the night. A midnight toast, a simple slice of whole grain, yet rumored to carry whispers of ancient wisdom. Darkness filled every corner, mingling with the scent of curiosity in the air. The thought of these snacks ignited a communion of excitement as they hovered on the brink of disbelief, a collective yearning for answers, for clarity in more ways than one. What happens when these peculiar snacks intertwine with the night's mysteries? What truths will emerge from the shadows? As shadows danced on the walls, the elderly gathered in their small living room, hearts beating like drums. Each second felt heavy with anticipation. They shared glances laden with uncertainty, the spicy scent of intrigue tightening around them. The simple act of tasting these bizarre snacks had taken on more significance than they ever thought possible. What if one of them truly held the key to seeing more, not just with their eyes but with their minds? Eleanor, the most daring of the bunch, was the first to take a leap of faith. She unwrapped the cucumber from its shiny foil and held it aloft like a trophy. "Here goes nothing," she exclaimed, the bravado in her voice faltering as she bit into the crisp flesh. The crunch echoed eerily, and the room fell silent, the weight of that sound suffocating. Everyone leaned forward, straining to catch a glimpse of something, anything. The seconds stretched into what felt like minutes as Eleanor chewed slowly. Suddenly, her expression shifted, eyes widening in genuine shock. "I can see it," she gasped, each word trembling on her lips. "The visions. They're coming." A chill swept through the group. Breathe, just breathe, they thought, but the air now tasted of electricity. What sort of clarity was this that came with a decent night's sleep? Suddenly, the lights flickered. Was it the snacks or something else? Like a message from the universe? Jack, an older gentleman with a reputation for his tall tales, muttered, "Not another one of your ghost stories, Eleanor." He laughed nervously, his eyes darting to the door as if expecting a specter to float in. "It's not a story, Jack," Eleanor shot back, her face pale but her voice unyielding. "I saw memories of my childhood. It was beautiful and terrifying." One by one, they hesitated, then succumbed to their curiosity. The strange banana lay uneaten, and its presence loomed ominously. Would it really sharpen sight? The jello sat glaringly pink, a seductive promise of whimsy now coated in apprehension. "Let us dig in." Mary, a soft-spoken widow, encouraged them, breaking the tense atmosphere with a smile that felt both comforting and surreal. She swiftly grabbed the flamingo pink jello and scooped it into a glass. It jiggled like it had a life of its own. As she took her first spoonful, a sudden gasp escaped her lips. "I can see shadows of faces," she whispered, her voice echoing with disbelief. The fear in the room began to shift. It replaced itself with an almost feverish excitement. They leaned closer, gripping their snacks, as the air thickened with suspense. Laughter bubbled, tensions melted, and just like that, they were no longer mere souls in the dark. They were explorers on the verge of discovery. Then, out of nowhere, a heavy thud resonated from the front door, as if something or someone was trying to enter. The light flickered again, casting long, twisting shadows that danced and morphed across the walls. "What was that?" Eleanor whispered, clutching her snack like a lifeline. The group froze, caught on the precipice of a world changing far beyond snacks. Was this new perception the unveiling of something greater? But what exactly was trying to cross the threshold? As a low, unsettling creak echoed through the wooden floorboards, the chilling words whispered through the group. What happens when sight and shadows collide? Every heart beat faster. The adventure was only beginning. The thud resounded again, louder this time, almost demanding attention. It resonated like a drumbeat echoing into the recesses of their minds. Eleanor's grip tightened around the half-eaten cucumber, her knuckles whitening as if it were a talisman against the unknown. "It's just the wind," Jack stammered, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his bravado. The lights flickered more violently now, plunging them into fleeting darkness, revealing flashes of distorted faces in the shadows. As Mary continued to stare blankly into the distance, her eyes seemed to unfocus, swimming in the ghostly haze actually visible now under their newfound sight. "I see them," she murmured. Those who passed on the room felt cold now, every heartbeat echoing like a warning in the taut silence. Was it just the snacks, or had they unwittingly awakened something? Jack shook his head. "You can't be serious, Mary. There's no such thing." But Eleanor was transfixed by Mary's expression, one of sheer wonder mixed with a tinge of horror. She took a tentative step closer, intent on seeing what others couldn't see. "What do you see?" "Their faces, they're all around us, flickering like old film." Mary's voice wavered, and a collective shudder rippled through the room. "They want something." Suddenly, the front door rattled violently, as if something wanted in. A whispering breeze wound its way through the cracks, filling the air with an unsettling sense of urgency. Eleanor gasped, feeling something stir just beyond the threshold, a presence brushing against her psyche like a whisper in the dark. "Maybe we shouldn't have eaten." Jack's voice trailed off, the implications hanging heavy in the air. What if we were meant to see? Or worse, to help? Mary's face paled further, and she stepped back, eyes darting. "Help who? Or what? We have to get out of here." But before anyone could make a move, the door creaked slowly open, a sepulchral groan escaping as if beckoning them closer. Blackness flowed in, more palpable than the dim light that barely held it at bay. A foul stench seeped in like a heavy fog, the smell of damp earth and something more rancid. Eleanor, for reasons she couldn't fathom, felt drawn to the door. What if they're lost? She whispered to herself, crossing an invisible line. But fear shot through her as understanding hit her. They were crossing into the world of untold histories, unwelcome truths. "Eleanor," a voice cut through her stupor, urging her back. It was Mary, panic-infused urgency pulling her out of the trance. "Don't." With a force that echoed like a gunshot, the door slammed shut, rattling the frame and knocking a small vase off the table. The glass shattered, shards glistening like dangerous stars on the floor. The group jumped backward, all in turmoil, staring wide-eyed at each other, then at the muted glow of the room. "Did you see that?" Eleanor's face was pale as she fumbled for words. "It wanted us to let it in." Just then, a sudden chill swept through the room, casting cold fingers down their spines. Each of them, paralyzed by fear, knew that something pivotal had shifted. What lay waiting just outside the door? Were they meant to peer deeper into shadows that bent reality, or were they risking it all? As they huddled together, united in their uncertainty, the walls seemed to close in, the vibrations of their collective heartbeat echoing against the closing distance of time. A voice, clear and silvery, emerged from the darkened doorway, whispering something too soft to catch. It felt almost like an invitation. What if seeing more comes with a price? Eleanor breathed, eyes wide with wonder and dread. Outside, the faint sound of laughter mingled with a low moan that transcended death itself. Shadows danced against the walls, eager to entwine with the living. And as their breaths lingered on the cusp of fear and curiosity, Eleanor knew this was just the beginning. What would happen when the line between worlds began to blur? The moment stretched painfully, like the silence before a thunderstorm. The flickering lights cast erratic shadows, desperately pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Eleanor's heart hammered in her chest, a primal rhythm echoing the fear that coursed through the room. "Guys, we need to go." Jack's urgent whisper cut through the air, but his eyes remained glued to the door, betraying his instinct for self-preservation. Mary clutched her arms, shivering. What if it's already here? What if it's inside with us? Her voice cracked, her gaze darting around. "We're not alone. It's in the walls. I can feel it." Eleanor felt a pull, a strange magnetic force urging her to step toward the door. What awaited her just beyond? Was it truth or terror? She could almost hear faint whispers, distant memories begging for recognition. "Stay together," Jack barked, stepping back, but it only pushed Eleanor further into her trance. The air thickened, feeling almost alive, swarming around them. Mary's eyes widened, hollow and desperate. "There are souls tied to this place," she said flatly, her voice hauntingly calm, "and they're angry. They want us to remember." Remember? The word hung heavy in the air, dripping with foreboding. What truth was lurking, buried beneath layers of time and grief? Then in an instant, the world outside twisted and shrieked. A cacophony of twisted laughter erupted, sending violent shivers down their spines. It was above them, below them, inside the walls. Eleanor tore her gaze from the door to catch Mary's terrified eyes, which held an understanding that transcended words. "They know us," she whispered, terror clawing at her throat. "They need our help or our souls." Suddenly, the lights flickered out completely, plunging them into suffocating darkness. A heavy silence replaced the laughter. It felt oppressive, like an unseen weight pressing against them. "Can anyone see?" Jack's voice trembled in the void. "Guys, I can't." Before he could finish, Eleanor felt a cold breath on her neck, sending icy fingers of fear cascading down her spine. A wave of scent, sickly sweet mingled with decay, washed over her, as if the very air held remnants of lost dreams and unfulfilled lives. "Eleanor, back away. It's south too close," Jack shouted, unsteady in the dark. Each solitary breath hung heavily in Eleanor's chest as she resisted the urge to scream. Something was coming, something suffocating, hungry, and ancient. It breathed with them, drawing closer, eager to seize the moment. The lights flickered back on, illuminating the room, yet nothing felt right anymore. The vase lay shattered on the floor, glass reflecting a web of fractured realities. Mary gasped as she pointed toward the door, just as it swung open again, revealing a silhouette cloaked in shadows. Nothing remained of the light behind. It was just an inky void, swallowing every inch of brightness in its presence. "Can we fight this?" Jack's words were barely more than a whisper, his eyes wide with dread. Eleanor stood frozen, rooted to the spot, overwhelmed. The entity that loomed in the doorway felt more sentient than anything she had ever experienced. She could sense its intention, wrapping around her instincts like chains, constricting tighter with every passing second. "What do you want?" she mustered, her voice a quivering thread of determination. The figure remained silent, but its presence pulsed with yearning, an echo ricocheting through the very fibers of her being. Suddenly, the voice returned, flickering like the lights before, sweet, yet horrific, laced with desperation. "Unlock your vision, join us." As a wave of energy surged through her, the darkness beckoned across the threshold. They stood on the knife's edge of fear and revelation, the boundary of their understanding blurred and trembling. What awaited them just beyond that doorway? Was the price of discovery worth the risk of losing themselves forever? Eleanor felt her heart race faster as the chilling voice lingered in the air, curling around her like tendrils of smoke. "Join us," it echoed, a sinister melody that struck deep within her gut. The force of the unknown tugged at her with an urgency that made her breath hitch. Jack took a step back, his eyes darting between the silhouette and Eleanor. "Eleanor, don't. We have to leave. Now." But before Eleanor could summon the courage to move, Mary took a trembling step forward, her expression a strange cocktail of fear and fascination. "What if we can see what they want? What if they're trying to tell us something important?" The silence hung heavily, and it felt as though the very walls were vibrating with suppressed screams and silent cries. Eleanor opened her mouth to object, but no words escaped. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of things unsaid. "Mary, this isn't a game," Jack snapped, urgency twisting his voice. "You can't trust it." Panic seeped into the edges of his words, and Eleanor watched the flicker of doubt cross his face. "It's not a game if they're calling us," Mary murmured. She stepped closer to the doorway, shadows wrapping around her like a cloak. "What if this is our chance to find out why we're here?" "Mary," Eleanor hissed, "get away from there." But something brutal was churning in Eleanor's chest, the urge to grasp at that otherworldly invitation, to know the truth that lay beyond the shadowed threshold. Before Jack could react, Eleanor bolted past him, drawn by a compulsion she couldn't understand. The silhouette pulsed at the door, an empty void, yet alive with whispers of the past. With each step closer, she could taste the sweet decay on her tongue, feel the cold seep around her like a frigid ocean deepening. "Eleanor, please," Jack pleaded, his voice cracking as he reached out toward her. "I have to know," she gasped, her body shaking, resisting the urge to sit, to surrender. But the pull was relentless. Frozen in that moment, she felt her body straining against the weight of fear and yearning, a splintering agony as clarity began to wash over her. The dark silhouette shifted, and she could almost make out gnawing eyes reflected in the depths. They watched her intently, waiting. "What do you want?" she cried into the void, tears stinging at the corners of her eyes. Remember, the voice came again, more insistent, dripping with urgency, as if it were begging her to accept its plea. Just then, the air shifted violently, shuddering around them. Shadows flickered as if caught in an invisible gale, and the ground beneath them trembled. Splintered laughter squirmed through the air, punctuated by screams echoing from the past. "What is happening?" Jack cried, panic filling his voice. Eleanor could hardly breathe. The whispers thickened, intertwining with her thoughts, pouring into her mind like poisoned honey. Suddenly, she felt a flash, pictures, memories colliding. Faces that weren't her own but felt achingly familiar. "I see," she gasped, clutching her head, reality bending around her. Every whisper became a loud scream, a tangled web of anguish, nostalgia, and desperate longing. They're trying to show us." But before she could articulate it further, an explosion of light erupted in the room, blinding her momentarily. When her vision cleared, she found Jack and Mary beside her, their faces ghostly pale. The figure stood still in the doorway, but now a writhing mist enveloped it, swirling like smoke caught in a tempest. In the chaos, a shriek pierced the air, louder and more visceral than anything they had ever experienced. The sound cut through them, making their bones vibrate. It felt as though the very house was alive, shuddering in horror, warning them. "Now you've seen it, now you're," marked the voice intoned, insidious and echoing through the chamber, an irreversible curse binding them to whatever lay beyond. Suddenly, everything went dark once again. Eleanor gasped. Struggling to regain her composure, she whispered into the void, "What do we do now?" A low murmur swept through the dark, promising answers that could change everything or shatter them entirely. Little did they know they were on the brink of revelation, teetering between past regrets and future horrors. When the lights flickered back to life, what would they discover lurking within the shadows? Would they dare to face what awaited them, or would they succumb to the very darkness that clung to their souls? Eleanor blinked, her heart thudding in her chest. The room flickered back to life, the dim light disorienting. Jack stood to her right, clutching his head as if trying to block out some unseen horror. Mary, pale and trembling, was frozen in place, staring, her eyes wide with a mix of dread and wonder. "What just happened?" Jack's voice trembled, each word heavy with fear. Eleanor felt the air thick with unspoken words, each one poised to spill out like a dam about to break. "I don't know. But that voice, do you think it's gone?" Mary whispered, the slightest tremor in her voice betraying her attempt at confidence. "Not a chance," Jack snapped, his gaze darting back to the doorway. The silhouette was still there, but now it seemed more solid, more defined, as if the darkness had shaped itself into a figure. "It's here," Eleanor murmured, her mind racing. Memories fought to surface, teasing at her consciousness. "It said we were marked. What does that even mean?" A soft, eerie chuckle echoed from the mist. "Marked to remember, marked to act." The words slithered through the air, chilling them to their bones. Eleanor's stomach twisted in knots. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, the frustration and fear boiling over. "Uncover the secrets buried within," the voice purred, reverberating ominously. "Only then will you understand." In that moment, Eleanor felt a tug at the edges of her memory, as if something just out of sight was aching to be brought into the light. "There's something," she whispered, almost to herself. "Something I'm supposed to remember." "We need to leave," Jack implored, desperation etching itself into every word. "This whole place is wrong, and you know it." But the deeper Eleanor looked into the dark, the more she felt an unshakable connection. It wasn't just shadows, something unfolded within. "No, Jack, wait. If we can't let it draw us in." His hands gripped her shoulders, grounding her. "Remember the stories? You said yourself, this place is cursed." As if on cue, the temperature dropped. A bone-chilling wind swirled around them, carrying a faint, sweet perfume that felt both inviting and dangerous. "Don't fight it," Mary urged, her voice barely a whisper, as she stepped toward the doorway. "Can't you feel it? Like we're part of something bigger?" "No," Jack shouted, pulling Eleanor back. "You have to listen to me. We're not part of anything. They want to use us." But the darkness giggled, a sound that crawled under their skin like 1,000 spiders. "Use you? No, dear ones. You are already bound. You are fragments of the past, echoes that will change everything." Eleanor's chest constricted. The voice painted a picture of memories, truths long buried, tragedies they had yet to confront. "I can't remember," she cried, anguish lacing her words. "Help us understand." In that moment, the figure shifted again, swirling clouds giving way just enough for flickers of light, their own faces, intertwined with others, grim and sorrowful. Each flicker felt like a pierce of ice, a relentless pounding of forgotten memories demanding to be felt once more. "Remember and you'll find the answers," the voice echoed, drifting like a ghost among them. Eleanor felt tears trickle down her cheeks, mixing with the increasing urgency around them. "What do you mean?" she asked, heart pounding against her ribs as the answer seemed so close, yet just out of reach. "Choose," the voice sang, wrapping around her heart, squeezing hard. "Choose to know." Jack's grip tightened, pulling her away as the shadows lunged forward. But in Eleanor's gut still lay a flicker of hope fighting against the mounting dread. "Wait, don't leave," Eleanor cried, the pull of unseen ties anchoring her in place. "We have to know what happens next." The darkness danced, swirling in patterns both beautiful and terrifying. And just as Eleanor felt the weight of breathtaking truth begin to unravel before them, everything shut down again in a violent hush. "Eleanor," Jack's voice pierced the silence, panic ringing strong. All at once, they were plunged into a thick darkness, gravity twisting around them, pulling them into uncertainty. What awaited them in that suffocating abyss? Would they face truth, or would the shadows swallow them whole, leaving nothing but echoes of remorse behind? Eleanor gasped as the darkness pressed around her like a suffocating blanket. Panic surged through her veins. "Jack! Mary!" she shouted, her own voice swallowed by the emptiness that surrounded them. The fear was almost tangible, a living thing that clung to her skin, raising goosebumps. Suddenly, the silence shattered with an ear-piercing shriek, tearing through the blackness like a jagged blade. It was followed by whispers, thousands of tiny voices fused in a plea, but their words were lost in the chaos. "Stay close," Jack shouted, his grip on her arm a steady anchor. Mary clutched her other hand, trembling. They huddled together, bracing against the unnerving sounds echoing around them. Eleanor's heart raced. "What do we do?" she cried, desperation bubbling to the surface. They were caught in a loop of dread, uncertainty twisted tightly around them. "Stay together. Don't let go," Jack said, pulling them forward, but the ground felt unstable beneath their feet. Each step seemed to lead them deeper into a labyrinth. The whispers turned louder, more insistent. Remember, remember, shut it out. Jack barked, his eyes wild, darting left and right as if expecting something to pounce from the black void. The shadows slithered closer, swirling in an almost hypnotic dance, beckoning. Eleanor's breath hitched as waves of memories began to flood her mind, flashes of laughter, sorrow, and pain. They mixed with images of unknown faces, strangers with hollow eyes staring back at her. "What is this?" she gasped, overwhelmed. A sudden light flickered in the distance, a single spark fighting to break through the oppressive darkness. "There!" She pointed, hope rising like a tide. "Don't follow it," Jack shouted, but before he could pull her back, Eleanor surged forward, drawn to the light. It pulsed, vibrant and alluring, offering a glimpse of clarity amidst the noise of chaos. "Eleanor, no?" Mary cried, but her warning came too late. As she neared the glow, the faces began to take form, their eyes wide with unfulfilled longings. One familiar face caught her attention, an elderly woman with gray hair and deep-set eyes. A warm smile creased the woman's face, and Eleanor felt a rush of recognition. "Help us remember," the woman urged, her voice clear amidst the cacophony. "You are not alone." Eleanor opened her mouth, ready to tell her everything, the disorientation, the fear, but the moment she tried to speak, the shadows surged with a vicious howl that swept through her. "No!" Jack shouted, racing after her. He reached Eleanor just as the light flickered violently, threatening to go out. He pulled her back, and she felt the connection slip away, despair clawing at her insides. "What were you thinking?" he shouted, his panic blending with anger. "Did you see her?" Eleanor cried, pointing back to where the light had flickered. "She knows something. We have to find out." But the moment slipped away, swallowed by the dark once again. The air grew thick and heavy, electric. Eleanor felt as though they were being watched. "Marked to act," the shadow voice echoed, ringing in her head. Each word was a pinprick of ice. "Eleanor," Mary whispered, her voice faltering. "What if we don't want to know? What if we were meant to forget?" Silence fell like a hammer, pressing them again. The darkness pulsed, and the ground beneath them quivered as if alive. They huddled together, fear coursing through them. Then, without warning, the chilling sound of laughter filled the oppressive void, echoing louder and louder until it seemed to drown them. "Why fear the truth, dear ones?" It taunted, amusement thick in its voice. "You hold the key and the choice." Eleanor felt a wave of icy dread sweep through her, the weight of her decision pressing down like a storm shelter, the abyss inviting them back in, eager to wrap its cold arms around them. What did they dare to uncover? And what secrets had they agreed to bury, willingly or not? As the voices crescendoed, a blinding flash exploded around them, sending them tumbling into the heart of chaos. What would rise from the depths of their choices? And would it bring salvation or doom? The blinding flash faded, but the chaos lingered, swirling in a way that made it hard to breathe. Eleanor blinked, trying to shake off the disorientation, but the world around her shifted and twisted. "Where are we?" she gasped, panic rising again. Her hands trembled as she looked around. Shapes writhed in the edges of her vision, flitting between the shadows and distant lights that blinked in and out like stars trying to pierce thick clouds. Jack and Mary were by her side, but their faces were pallid, fear etched deeply in their features. "Eleanor," Jack said, his voice trembling, "we have to focus. We need to find a way out." A thick fog rolled over them, cold and suffocating. The laughter, once fading into the distance, now echoed hauntingly close, a sinister reminder that they were not alone. "Help us remember," it was the woman's voice again, clear and sweet, rising above the clamor. Eleanor turned, searching for the source, but the darkness swallowed her vision, forcing her to confront her own fractured mind. "What does she want from us?" Mary whispered. Her gaze darted nervously, as if the shadows themselves reached for her. "I don't know," Eleanor said, swallowing the lump in her throat. The pulse of energy coursed through her, growing more intense, as if she were at the epicenter of something powerful. "But I think she's trying to tell us something important." Jack grabbed Eleanor's arm. "Important or not, we can't stay here. It's getting worse. We need to push through." Eleanor took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Maybe if we hold on to each other, we can find the light again." She reached for Mary and Jack, their fingers interlocking in a tight grip. And when we do, we'll ask her what we need to remember. With determination, they moved forward, forcing their way through the unseen obstacles, each step unsettling the ground beneath them. They were entering a realm where reality and memory lost all distinction, where safety felt like a distant, fragile dream. The shadows shifted longer, more pronounced whispers filled the air again, wrapping around them like smoke. You cannot hide. It was a disembodied voice, thick with malice, that roared at them through the chaos. Stay close, Eleanor urged, the fear clawing at her throat. They pressed on, matching their breathing, a chorus of synchronized heartbeats in the shadows. From the depths of the fog, more memories fought their way to the surface, visions of a faded childhood, sunlit days, and soft laughter. In each fleeting moment, Eleanor caught glimpses of a life she had nearly forgotten, a smile that felt as warm as the summer sun. The memories sparkled before her, calling her name with urgency that eclipsed the darkness. Eleanor, the voices cascaded, shifting from a haze of fear to a sweet chorus, a symphony of longing that echoed deeper in her chest. Remember who you are. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. A wave of dark energy surged through the air, and the laughter turned savage, a mocking cacophony that drowned their resolve. Do you see it? Jack shouted over the tumult, his voice tinged with terror. It's trying to break us apart. No, Eleanor screamed, digging her nails into her friend's palms, anchoring them together. We hold on. Together. The shadows raged, crackling with energy, as raw and fierce as a storm. The light appeared again, flickering like a candle in a tempest. Dive for it, she yelled. We can't let it win. With the binding force of desperation, they surged toward the glow, propelled by a primal instinct to survive. As the darkness lashed around them, a deafening roar filled the air, threatening to swallow them whole. And in that moment of chaos, Eleanor felt something shift within her, a truth fighting to resurface, a secret they had all buried deep. Just as they reached the light, she felt its power wash over her, a radiant warmth that promised clarity and understanding. But as the shadows clawed at their ankles, something within her began to unravel. What truth lay buried, waiting to be unearthed? Would its unveiling save them or plunge them deeper into the abyss? The light enveloped them, a protective cocoon against the biting cold of the shadows. For a heartbeat, Eleanor felt safe, held in glittering warmth, like the embrace of a long-lost friend. But the moment shattered, that a blast of force rippled outward, and the world distorted again. The trio stumbled, struggling to keep their footing as the colors twisted into grotesque shapes. The laughter morphed into shrieks, warping into a cacophony that pierced through Eleanor's mind. She clutched Jack and Mary tighter, feeling the panic vibrate through them all. Where did it go? Mary shouted, her voice echoing strangely. The light had dimmed, retreating into a suffocating darkness, and all that surrounded them was chaos. The shadows rose, angry, clawing at their exposed skin. Eleanor felt the scratching of talons on her heart, panic swelling like a tidal wave. We have to keep moving, Jack urged, his voice rising above the noise. She could see the fear in his eyes, the same fear mirrored in Mary's wide gaze. Trust me, Eleanor shouted as she lifted her foot, pressing forward into the twisting darkness. Each step felt like stepping into ice, a coldness that seeped into her bones. Yet, strangely, memories flickered at the edges of the shadows, echoes of laughter, sights of family gatherings, and fragrant summers at the lake. Eleanor, keep your eyes on the path, Jack called, pulling her back to reality. She could feel the pull of the memories, almost tangible as they grasped at her heart. Don't let it distract you. Suddenly, the fog parted for a moment, revealing a massive stone structure, a doorway, lit from within. It shimmered like glass, its edges glowing with energy. Eleanor felt the undeniable urge to go toward it, the warm pulse radiating from within beckoning her. Is that a way out? Mary whispered, her voice barely a breath. It has to be, Eleanor said, her heart racing. But even as she said it, doubt tugged at her. What if the light was a trap? Then, without warning, the shadows shifted violently, snapping towards them like a hungry beast. You cannot escape. They resounded, a hissing chorus mixing with anguished cries. The ground shook beneath their feet. Run, Eleanor shouted, adrenaline surging as she dashed forward, dragging Jack and Mary behind her. They hurtled toward the doorway, the energy resonating louder as they approached. "We have to reach it." As they neared the entrance, an unseen force pushed against Eleanor, slamming into her chest with a bone-shaking impact that knocked the breath from her lungs. The laughter returned, wild and mocking, echoing off the stone walls. She could sense the shadows trying to tear them apart, but the light was so close, a heartbeat away. "Now," Jack yelled, extending his hand. "Take my hand, Eleanor." With one final cry, they lunged together. The moment they crossed the threshold, the room exploded in brightness. Eleanor gasped as they were thrown back into a cold void. But this time, the shackles of darkness fell away, revealing the vast sky replete with stars above them. A soft, eternal night enveloped them, and for a brief moment, she felt peace. However, grounding was short-lived. In the quiet, something shifted, a shadow forming at the edge of her vision. The figures began to materialize, faces familiar but twisted, people she'd known, faces from her childhood, but their expressions were strained, etched with despair. "Eleanor," they chorused, their voices raw. "You have to remember, you have to help us." The realization struck her like lightning. "What is this?" she gasped, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. "What do you want?" As she searched their faces, something deep inside her stirred. An overwhelming sense of purpose washed over her, alongside the chilling knowledge of dread. The shadows were not merely threats, they were a part of her truth, buried and hidden for so long. "Help us remember," the figures urged, drawing closer, their hands extending toward her. Eleanor felt the pull of their pain, their memories intertwined with her own. Just as she was about to reach forward, she clutched her head, terrified of the secrets buried beneath her consciousness. Could she bear the weight of the truth? What if remembering meant breaking the fragile bonds holding her, Jack, and Mary together? And as the shadows swirled, tendrils creeping ever closer, Eleanor realized facing what lay hidden within was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming who she was. But could she? The fate of her friends, and perhaps her own, rested on that answer. What horror lay in the secrets she had buried? Eleanor stood at the edge of her own mind, teetering on the precipice where ghosts of the past loomed large. The stars above felt like distant guides, beckoning her forward, yet reminding her of the shadows creeping around her. The air was tense, thick with unspoken words that hung like cobwebs in the silence. "Help us remember," echoed through her thoughts, a call she could no longer ignore. The faces surrounding her held desperation and pain, eyes pleading. Each one was a thread in the woven tapestry of her reality. "Who are you?" Eleanor whispered, feeling the weight of the question press down on her. The figures shifted, appearing both familiar and foreign. The fear she had felt moments ago began to unravel, threading into something deeper and understanding. "We are you," one voice replied, resonating with a soft urgency. "Echoes of the choices you made, the paths you didn't take. We need you, Eleanor." Her heart raced. Memories flooded her mind, childhood laughter ringing against the walls of a long-lost home, family gatherings filled with warmth and love, and then the haunting absence that followed. Something had been stolen from her, buried beneath layers of forgetfulness. Jack and Mary were close, their presence a tether keeping her anchored. She turned to them, eyes wide. "Do you feel it?" she asked. They nodded, fear and curiosity mingling in their expressions, a shared understanding beginning to emerge. "What do we need to remember?" Eleanor asked the shadows. They shifted, revealing flashes of scenes from her past bitter losses, moments of joy and sorrow intertwined. A deep sense of longing cascaded through her. "Your truths and ours. We are tied together, Eleanor," they chorused. "Fear has held you back from understanding. Face the memories." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat, a lump swelling as images surged to the forefront of her mind. She saw herself lost, afraid to confront the decisions that had spiraled her into darkness. "I don't want to remember," she cried out, the pain pricking her heart. But even as she protested, something deep inside urged her to confront it, to peel back the layers and face what lay beneath. "Remember us," came the gentle plea, echoing through the vast, star-filled sky. "Only through acknowledgement can we be free." Suddenly, the ground shook, snapping her back. "We are running out of time," Jack shouted, panic etching his face. "We need to choose." A violent howl ripped through the air, and the shadows converged, their presence looming ominously. Eleanor felt the weight of fear pressing down, yet it was suffused with another feeling, an immense hope stirring deep within her. "I'm not afraid," she exclaimed, raising her chin defiantly. "I'm ready to remember." A wave of energy surged through her, and the figures began to dissolve into swirls of light as she closed her eyes, focusing on the faces hovering in the ether. With each heartbeat, memories unfurled like petals, and she surrendered to the flood. She saw love and regret, joy and grief, every moment shared. Every lesson unlearned came rushing back. The shadows flickered around her, many becoming radiant, reflecting the light she had begun to reclaim. I remember who I am," she shouted, her voice ringing out through the darkness. The light within her intensified, piercing the fog, illuminating the space around them. Jack and Mary gasped, their faces brightening with a hint of courage. "What is happening?" Mary whispered, her eyes wide with awe. "It's breaking," Eleanor breathed, heart racing, veins buzzing with newfound strength. "The shadows, they were never meant to keep us." With that revelation, the darkness began to crumble, the twisted laughter slipping away like sand through fingers. The whispers transformed into soothing harmonies, blending into a symphony of liberation. "Thank you," the voices echoed, mirroring her own. "Be free." In a brilliant flash, the last remnants of shadow disintegrated, and the stars above shone with unparalleled brilliance. They had transcended the darkness, and Eleanor felt alive, free from the chains of memories that once terrified her. In that moment, the night sky welcomed them back, wrapping around them like a long-lost embrace. As they stumbled back to reality, Eleanor found herself standing in the living room where it all began. She blinked against the warm glow of the lamp. The chilling atmosphere had vanished, replaced by a sense of peace that settled over them like a soft blanket. Jack laughed nervously, glancing around the room. "Did we really just experience that?" Mary's face was lit with wonder, eyes shining. "I think we did, and we were meant to." Eleanor smiled through tears, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We remembered. Together we faced it all." The chaos was behind them now, their bond unbreakable after crossing into the depths of their fear. They had emerged with a clarity that felt audaciously new yet achingly familiar. As they embraced, Eleanor whispered a silent promise to the stars she would honor the shadows of her past, carrying them not as burdens but as reminders of her strength. And with that, they stood together, ready to step boldly into their next adventure. They were not merely shadows of who they once were, but luminous beings, filled with light and purpose. Now, as you reflect on this journey, do me a favor. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button to help fuel our algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let your voice be heard. And for the love of stories, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how bold and beautiful the journey of remembrance can be.